Imagine being put in a position where you have to leave your 5-year-old child behind and move to a different country in pursuit of a better life for yourself and for your child.
Or imagine being that 5-year-old left behind without a parent.
Well, that's the position last week's guest was put in. Her mother had to leave her behind at the age of 5 and move to the United States, not knowing when she'd see her again. And it wasn't until 10 years later, at the age of 15, that she was able to reconnect with her mother.
Her story, along with many other stories we've heard, are stories we hear every day about immigrants coming to the United States.
This hit home for Anya and me. We have younger children, and we can't imagine being in a position where we would have to turn to them and say goodbye to them, not knowing for how long.
Episode 4, Take 1.
I'm sure many of you watching can relate, either directly or through your parents. There was some kind of background where this decision had to be made. My parents were forced to make that decision back in the 70s. They had 7 children already, and they left 7 kids behind in pursuit of that better life for the family. They were both detained, and somehow my dad was able to continue forward on his journey, but mom was deported back to El Salvador, and she stayed back with the 7 children. Dad lived in the States for a couple of years, then he came back, but the situation in El Salvador was still bad. The civil war that was taking place. Folks were put in a situation where you were forced to join either the federal or the guerrillas. If you were young and abled, you weren't going to just slip by. You were going to have to join one of the forces. Hundreds of people dying every day, and it was a very bad position to be in. So my folks started sending off their children on their own to the United States one at a time. They sent off my 2 oldest siblings, and by the time it was time to send the 3rd one, a female, they made the decision to just pack everything, sell what they had, collect any little money they could, pack everyone, and we all made the journey at that time. This was early 80s. At that point, there were already 2 siblings of mine here in the States, and there were 9 of us left behind. My parents made the journey with 9 of us, and mom was pregnant along that journey back in the 80s coming up to the States.
When your parents made the decision to come up, was there a determining act that happened or sequence that happened to say, okay, we gotta go?
My parents volunteered with the local community and the church, and at our house, we had a warehouse where the churches would drop off the food and we would distribute to our town. And at some point, the guerrillas would come by and help themselves to the stock. And the soldiers would come by, and they're looking at us like we're enabling the other party. So my dad got notified that there was a hit on our family. So the decision had to be made, and it had to be made quickly. And within a matter of days, we were en route.
It's crazy. So what did your parents sell everything and just go?
It's easy to sell everything when you don't have much. So I think we had 1 cow and 1 horse, if I got my facts right. And the horse had 1 horsepower.
Wow. So lame. You made me cry. Laughter.
So we put everything in public storage.
Public storage? Oh my gosh.
They're still paying for that storage unit. They rented a pod.
Facebook Marketplace, yeah.
Ooh, man, that's rough. Yeah. We didn't have much, so we sold what little we had, and within a matter of days, I remember going and getting our passport photos taken, and to get out of the country at that time, you had to lie. So I believe the story was we were going to Mexico to pay homage to the Virgin of Guadalupe.
So from the time that you left your home How long did it take to get to the United States? Do you remember?
To get to the United States, probably a couple of weeks. Mm-hmm. But to get to our final destination, which ended up being Virginia, it was a month-long journey.
Wow, that's a long time.
As a child, I didn't feel the anxiety that my parents were going through throughout the trip. I had lunch with Dad a few years ago, I want to say about 10, 12 years ago, and we were talking about the scenario, and I asked him what he was going through when he was coming up during that journey, and he said that based on all the stress he was going through, I mean, not knowing if he would lose a child along the way or the risks, the hazards that I had no idea about at the time. Based on all that, if he had to make the decision again, and even knowing the benefits that we gained by moving to the States, he wouldn't do it again.
I stress out planning a vacation, so I can't imagine planning escaping a country.
So we were in Mexico waiting for the opportunity to cross the border into the United States. We were hiding out at some church, and the priests or the folks that were helping kept going to the Rio Grande to check the status of that water level, and they kept coming back, and it was just bad. It was the currents were strong, and the final day that the decision was made, my parents were briefed. They were told, look, just be willing or be ready to lose a few of your kids as you're crossing.
I can't fathom that.
But almost like a miracle, we showed up to the river, and it was knee high. It just, the path had been paved for us. It was destined for us to make it across, and that's how it worked out. I remember my brother Carlos piggyback riding me across the Rio Grande. And this is me at 5. Again, for me, it's an adventure. For everyone else, they're going through a lot of stress. I remember shortly after crossing the Rio Grande, we had to run for cover because there were helicopters flying overhead. And that sensation, I could sense that there was fear around me. So we all ran for bushes and trees and were hiding. And nothing came of it. I guess they didn't see us, and then we just continued waiting until the connections that the priests had made across the border arrived in a couple vehicles to transport us. It's easy to judge and say, oh, well, they should have followed the legal route. They should have done this. They should have done that. But when your life and the lives of your children are at stake, decisions have to be made, and they have to be made quickly. And it's the position my parents were put into. They were either going to leave all of us behind, send a few of us up. A decision had to be made, or people would get killed.
And I'm sure that's a decision that many families go through, even today.
Yeah, after the war, it was a gang problem. Up until recently, the gangs were the ones driving family members to make these decisions to separate from their loved ones. So we've decided to dedicate this episode to honor those brave folks who have made very, very tough decisions in the past to pave the way for folks in younger generations to live in a much better atmosphere. Me being one of them. I got to go to school here. I got to build a career here. And I've had a very comfortable life thanks to the tough decision that my parents had to make one day to get us here. Do you have a story about your mom or dad coming into the States, their experiences?
Both my parents came here, I wouldn't say illegally, but they did come on a flight, not together. My mom came here, she said 1979, and she came in a goal. Well, the goal was for her to come here for a year to learn English. At that moment in her life, she wanted to be a secretary and to find a better job. She knew that speaking English was a big skill that she had to perfect and learn, she told me. And so when she was learning English there, she didn't have the opportunity to really practice it a lot. So I think her parents and her made the decision for her to come here. So my mom had her aunt and her cousins living here in the United States already, and her parents, my mom's parents, asked them if it would be okay for her to stay with them for that year. So she came here, started taking English classes, and started working. My mom's aunt found her a position as a nanny, and she started working with a few families. My mom was working with a family, and they had offered her a green card, and I remember my mom telling me that her aunt warned her about that a lot of families would offer people, okay, I'll get you the green card if you work for me for X amount of dollars. So my mom decided she'd go and try anyway, and she trusted the family, and luckily she was blessed with a great family, and they kept their promise, and they helped her with the paperwork and got her green card to be here. My mom is still in contact with that family who helped her get her green card and help her jumpstart her life here, so she's forever grateful to them. My dad came, I want to say, in the same situation for a temporary visa, tourist visa, and ended up staying. And they met during their English classes and fell for each other and got married. And a few years later, I was born. Hearing my mom's story about how she came here when she was 19, and putting myself in that position as a 19-year-old, and having to go to a different country, learn a new language, new customs, new everything. I couldn't do it myself. Start a new life. That would be very hard to put myself in that position. She was homesick for a long time. She said she used to cry a lot and was very sad to leave her mom and her brother and her sister behind. So it was very tough for her to, knowing that she was coming for an education and to better her life, but still you really miss that. Your home, you miss your family, your friends, your food, everything.
Big shout out and much respect for the folks who've made very tough decisions similar to the ones we've talked about today. So if you're the son or daughter of an immigrant, or if you're an immigrant yourself, or grandchild, find that grandparent, find that parent, and give them a big hug and thank them for the sacrifices they made to get you the comforts that you have today.
Whether we're children of immigrants or immigrants ourselves, I think there's a lot to be proud of and to share with the world, share our stories, and let our backgrounds and stories give inspiration for others. I think that's what this channel is really about, is displaying Orgullo Latino, and we should be very proud of our stories, our parents' stories, our grandparents' stories, and should showcase and display that to the world as best as we can, and continue to spread that message throughout all platforms.
Thanks for tuning in. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. Hit that like button, forward this video to a friend, share.
Leave your comment below. Let us know if you like today's content. Let us know if you want to share your story with us, what you thought of our stories. I know a lot of it hits close to home for many people, so we'd love to hear back.
See you next week.
Bye.
It was a month-long journey.
Wow, that's a long time.
Yeah. We hit up a couple Airbnbs along the way.
Did you leave a good review? She trusted the family, and luckily she was blessed with a great family, and they kept their promise, and they helped her with the paperwork and got her green card to be here.
She's still working for that family for $5 an hour.
She's not.
Do you have a story about your mom or dad coming into the States, their experiences? Or did they fly coach or first class?
Well,
they both flew in, didn't they? I don't feel sorry for your parents at all. All right, back to my story. We have a lot of respect for... Who do we respect?
Not our sleep.
I know, apparently not.